Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at the story of Al Jolson, misunderstood hero or villain. Ask most movie fans, what was the first talkie, and the most frequent reply tends to be The Jazz Singer starring Al Jolson. This is a sort of correct answer, but not really. The earliest sound movies were made by synchronizing motion pictures to phonograph records. In 1926, a year before The Jazz Singer, Warner Brothers re-released the previously silent film Don Juan with a soundtrack recording done by the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. Warner Brothers also released the first actual all-talking feature-length motion picture in 1928. It was called Lights of New York. The following year, 20th Century Fox released In Old Arizona, the first all-talkie feature with sound directly recorded on the film. The Jazz Singer was actually a silent movie with poorly synchronized musical numbers and a few sentences of spoken words. One of the main reasons The Jazz Singer is such a legendary film is because of its star, the Immortal Al Jolson. Jolson was by all accounts the Elvis Presley of his time. At the time The Jazz Singer was released, Jolson was one of the biggest stars in show business. As a side note, Jolson did make several films after The Jazz Singer, but none came close to it in popularity or historical significance. Many current movie fans are familiar, at least somewhat, with Jolson and his showbiz legacy, but he has few current-day fans. This is partly because Jolson's shtick was the Blackface act, which is, to contemporary movie fans, beyond disgusting. Blackface, which is captured for posterity in many films of the first half of the 20th century, is a sad reminder to most people of the ridicule and mistreatment of black Americans. Jolson didn't always use blackface in his act, but because most people of today know him only by The Jazz Singer, his reputation is often a symbol of a very backward time. Also, Jolson's singing style, unlike Elvis's or Frank Sinatra's or Dean Martin's, does not hold up well. His songs seem rather hokey and schmaltzy. His singing style is clipped and choppy and not melodic. His dance moves look rather silly and definitely dated. Supposedly, Jolson was not a nice man in real life either. Most of his fellow performers say he was deeply insecure. According to his contemporary Groucho Marx, Jolson was so insecure that he would leave the water faucet running in his dressing room during his live appearances so he couldn't hear the applause for the previous acts. During his Broadway performances, Jolson would often stop the show in the middle and say to the audience, "Hey folks, do you want to hear the rest of the show, or do you want to hear Jolie sing?" The crowd would inevitably applaud and cheer for the show to stop. At this point, Jolie, Jolson's nickname, would sing some songs to the widely appreciative crowd. Jolson really didn't seem to be such a great guy, or was he? No one is all bad, or all good for that matter. In fact, Jolson was, ironically enough given his perception today, a crusader for black Americans in show business. For instance, he was instrumental in helping to promote black playwright Garland Anderson's work, which resulted in the first Broadway production with an all-black cast. He also attempted to have an all-black dance team featured in a Broadway show at a time when black people were banned from Broadway productions. As black dancer Jenny Lagon said, "In those times, it was a black and white world. You didn't associate too much socially with any of the stars. You saw them at the studio, nice, but they didn't invite. The only ones that ever invited us home for a visit was Al Jolson and Ruby Keeler." In another instance, Jolson read that songwriters Noble Sissy and U.B. Blake, neither of whom he knew at the time, had been thrown out of a restaurant because of their race. When he heard this, he tracked the pair down and took them out to dinner and reportedly told them he'd punch anyone in the nose who tried to kick us out. As for his blackface persona, which seems to almost literally fly in the face of his apparent true feelings on race, this persona was often used as a means to introduce white audiences to black culture and also make fun of the general idea of white supremacy. As such, when black audiences saw The Jazz Singer, rather than boycott it, a Harlem newspaper, Amsterdam News, today the oldest black newspaper in the country, according to their website, stated that The Jazz Singer was one of the greatest pictures ever produced, and that every colored performer is proud of him. Jolson also insisted on the hiring and fair treatment of black people at a time when this was an outlandish concept to many in America. For example, at the time, members of the KKK are estimated to have accounted for about 15% of the US's voting-age population. He also crusaded for equal rights for black Americans as early as 1911, when he was 25. Through his very controversial portrayals and advocating for black performers, Jolson helped pave the way for the success of such legends as Louis Armstrong, Ethel Waters, Duke Ellington, and Cab Calloway. As the St. James Encyclopedia of Popular Culture stated, almost single-handedly, Jolson helped to introduce black American musical innovations like jazz, ragtime, and the blues to white audiences. Famed African-American jazz singer Clarence Henry noted of Jolson, "Jolson, I loved him. I think he did wonders for the blacks and glorified entertainment." Beyond the controversy surrounding Jolson, he was also the first performer to entertain American troops in World War II. A few years later, he was also the first to do the same during the Korean War. Yes, even before Bob Hope. His breakneck performance schedule in the latter is actually thought to have contributed to his death soon after. In his later years, Jolson, for the most part, led a contented life of semi-retirement. He remains a huge legend and icon. Even as late as 1948, with Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, and other singers on the scene, Jolson was voted America's most popular male singer. Al Jolson died shortly after entertaining the troops in 1950. He left a wife and 2 newly adopted children. Reportedly, black performers lined the way at his funeral to pay their respects to the man that had helped popularly introduce white America to elements of black culture. In the end, Al Jolson is often seen today as a villain, and it is perhaps an understatement to say that even to his most staunch supporters, Jolson remains a controversial figure. But it would seem that the truth is that Al Jolson, much like us all, is a mixed bag. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Hit that subscribe button on the screen or below this video now. Also, do check out some of our previous videos from the archives, which are linked to on the screen now. And as always, thank you for watching.